Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled people story. I've been living on my family's farm for as long as I can remember. My dad taught me everything I know about being a farmer, how to care for the animals, maintain the equipment, and work the land. The farm has been in our family for generations, and I hope to pass it on to my own kids someday. One of my most prized possessions is our big green John Deere tractor. My grandpa bought it brand new in the 70s, and it's still going strong. That tractor's like a member of the family after all the hard work it's done over the decades. I keep it tuned up real nice, and it always starts right up when I turn the key. We live out in the country, so most of our neighbors keep to themselves. But a new family moved into the old Henderson place down the road last year. Tom, Karen, and their three rambunctious kids. I tried to welcome them to the area when they first arrived, even brought over a pie that my wife baked. But Karen gave me the cold shoulder from the start. I figured maybe city folks just needed some time to get used to country living. One Saturday afternoon, I was using the tractor to brush hog the back pasture. It was a muggy 95 degrees out, and I was dripping with sweat. Suddenly I heard hollering and looked up to see Karen and her three kids tromping across my field. Karen started yelling that it was too hot for her babies to play outside, and they wanted to ride the tractor. I shut off the engine and tried to kindly explain that the tractor wasn't a toy. The mower blades under the belly were dangerous. Not to mention I didn't feel right letting strange kids operate my grandfather's beloved tractor. Well, Karen didn't take no for an answer. She accused me of hogging the tractor all to myself, said her precious angels had never ridden a real tractor before and they were entitled to experience it. No amount of logical reasoning seemed to get through to her. Karen finally stormed off, screeching that I hadn't heard the last of her. I written off as just a weird interaction with a helicopter mom. But the very next morning I went out to crank up the tractor and discovered all four tires were completely deflated. Each one had a great big slash right through the sidewall, ruined all four tires beyond repair. I immediately thought of Karen's threats the day before. It seemed mighty suspicious, but I didn't have solid proof she was the culprit. New tires weren't cheap either. That set me back almost $600. I decided to give Karen the benefit of the doubt, in case some other vandal was responsible. The following week, I was back brush hogging the fields with four shiny new tires on the tractor. I assumed that would be the end of my troubles with the new neighbor. But mid-morning Karen appeared again, kids in tow. She demanded they be allowed to take turns driving the tractor after being denied last time. Staying polite but firm, I again said no, explaining that the tractor was for working the farm, not for playtime. The kids looked disappointed, but Karen was livid. She started cussing me out, saying I was an uppity jerk who mistreated poor innocent children. I told her to please get off my land immediately. Karen just glared and stomped away, muttering under her breath. I kept a close eye on the tractor tires over the next few days, but nothing seemed amiss. Then the following Saturday, I had another unpleasant visit from Karen. She insisted the kids at least be allowed to sit on the dumb old tractor, since I was too selfish to let them actually operate it. I refused, warning her to leave my property at once. When I went out to work on Monday, all four tires on the tractor were flat once again. This time I didn't waste any time. I called Johnny's tire shop to come tow the tractor to their garage. Then I marched straight over to Karen's place and pounded on her door. When a defiant Karen answered, I calmly but directly accused her of vandalizing my tractor as retaliation for not letting her kids joyride. I made clear I had my suspicions the first time, but now there was no doubt she was the culprit. Karen kept denying it, calling me crazy and paranoid, but I stood firm and demanded she pay to replace all four tires yet again. That's when Karen really flew off the handle. She started shrieking that I had no proof and couldn't force her to pay a cent. I pointed out the timing was an awful big coincidence if the slashed tires weren't her doing. Karen got right in my face, jabbing her finger in my chest and threatening to call the sheriff for harassment. I'll admit I lost my cool at that point. I yelled that if she didn't pay up, I'd make sure she was held responsible for the damages. Karen grabbed the phone and dialed cops, crying crocodile tears about the scary man on her porch threatening her poor family. It wasn't long before a deputy sheriff pulled into my driveway. I explained the whole sordid ordeal with Karen to him, but Karen kept playing the victim, accusing me of terrorizing her without just cause. The deputy said it was a civil matter and would have to be settled between Karen and myself. With no solid evidence, he couldn't force her to pay or punish her for the alleged vandalism. After the unsatisfying visit from law enforcement, I realized small claims court was my only remaining option. I gathered up repair invoices and photographs documenting the tire slashing. I submitted the lawsuit paperwork along with a written summary of Karen's shenanigans. A few weeks later, we had our court date. Karen showed up dressed to the nines like she was headed to church. I presented my side of the story along with the evidence that I'd meticulously gathered. Karen tried to claim I was just blaming her out of spite, but the judge didn't buy her act. He ruled in my favor, ordering Karen to pay the $1,200 cost of 2 full sets of replacement tires. Karen was furious when she left the courtroom. But I finally had justice for the damage she caused, and I sent her a clear message that I wasn't going to be intimidated or pushed around. She definitely thinks twice now before setting foot on my property again. The tractor tires have remained intact ever since our day in court too. Hopefully Karen learned her lesson the hard way. No one messes with a farmer's livelihood and gets away with it for long. The next one is a pro-revenge story. This story goes back almost 20 years now. To set the scene, I was working for a cable TV company at the time. The call center I was working at had been filled with guys recruited from dial-up support companies nationwide to support this new super-fast broadband being trialed in the country for the first time. We're talking 500K connections. I mention this because it meant our call center was full of some of the best support engineers in the country, some of the most intelligent people I have ever known. After about a year there, 4 of us were asked to look into complaints sent to the managing director, hereafter known as Big Boss, about the service. Mostly these were complaints from particularly difficult customers, but occasionally, the customer complaining was someone rather important, and they needed special attention. The 4 of us had quite different skills, but complemented each other perfectly. Before long, we were close friends with the Big Boss's personal assistant at head office, and had earned very good reputations after solving some extremely challenging issues. This was before the era of Google, so being good meant you really knew your stuff, not just how to look it up. It was a great place to work. Turnover was practically zero since all our staff were experienced before joining us. Then came the new director, whom I'll refer to as A-hole. A-hole had come from another call center in the company, a customer services call center. He was also technically inept. Seriously, this guy once told me that directors don't use Excel, only Word, so I needed to copy all the spreadsheets into Word for him. He didn't understand how Excel worked. In the short time he'd been there, he had alienated most of the best staff. He tried to turn the staff into script followers, wanting every case fixed in a set amount of minutes. We were doing complex tasks like rebuilding TCP/IP stacks, hacking registries, and even guiding people through Windows 98 rebuilds. Imagine trying to guide your grandmother through changing a ringtone over the phone. Now imagine guiding her through rebuilding Windows after 2 problematic software programs messed up her computer. Now try doing it in 10 minutes or get yelled at by A-hole for ruining his figures. Morale plummeted and we started losing good people. Head office knew something was wrong, so they sent word that the big boss was coming for a meet and greet. A-hole was informed, so on that day, some of the more outspoken among us were scheduled off. Those selected to meet the big boss were either yes men or people who were instructed on what to say out of fear. As a result, Big Boss left thinking everything was fine. My breaking point came when my team was given an impossible task. By this point, I'd already handed in my notice. He wanted a flow diagram of every possible fault we were dealing with and its solution, all on a single piece of A3 paper. We objected, he demanded, we failed, and we faced the consequences. Our manager defended us fiercely. We tried to explain the nature of the calls and the challenges we faced. His loud response was, "I don't care, I'm a director, and when I tell you to do something, you do it or I will fire every single one of you." I went home furious. My girlfriend, who was pregnant with our first child and worked in the same office, would have to continue dealing with A-hole. I felt I needed to do something. On my last day, I called the big boss's PA to say goodbye. She was shocked to hear I was leaving and wanted to know why. I told her everything. She asked if she could inform the big boss, and I agreed. The big boss called me shortly after, and I explained everything. I suggested he visit the site unannounced and send out his own email to the staff, giving them a chance to voice their concerns. I also provided a list of people who could corroborate my story. A few days later, the big boss did exactly as I suggested. That night, A-hole was summoned to Big Boss's temporary office, and after that meeting, he left and was never seen again. The big boss later called me to say he couldn't discuss details but assured me I had done the right thing. My leaving party was memorable, and I was told I wouldn't be paying for a single drink that night. The hangover the next 2 days was intense, but it was worth it. The next one is a petty revenge story. A while ago, I was working for a popular restaurant chain. I was a bartender there, but frequently picked up serving shifts. Often I was responsible for training our new employees, and honestly, I preferred training them so they knew how to do the job properly. As such, I was pretty much responsible for training the majority of our new hires. Because I spent their first few weeks at their side, I felt responsible for them. One particular server I had was a sweet boy, who was excellent with customers and would go to great lengths to please someone. I don't know if I've met anyone who cared about others as much since then. As such, I felt particularly protective of this boy. During one shift, I was bartending, and he was serving a large party seated near my bar. I could overhear everything that was happening as he served them. The lady, who I assumed was the head of the party, wouldn't give this kid a break. She constantly talked over him, asked for items we never had on the menu, claiming she'd had them the last time, and gave him attitude for these non-existent items. It was typical entitled customer behavior. I could see the server was visibly becoming flustered with the table, but unfortunately, in the food industry, that's something you have to learn to handle. The turning point for me was when she snapped at the server over a birthday song. Our establishment doesn't sing happy birthday to tables, but we do offer a free sundae. The server explained this, but she wasn't satisfied. He even politely offered to sing, but warned her it would only be him singing as the other servers likely wouldn't join in. She was incredibly rude to him about this, and I was behind the bar, fuming. As he finally went to ring in their entree order, she rudely asked him for another mojito, claiming I hadn't made it correctly. Another thing to note is that our location is next to a hockey stadium. Depending on whether there's a game or not, we prepare drinks in different glasses. I hadn't been thinking and made the drink in the wrong glass. I was okay with remaking it in the proper glass. She might have been difficult, but I did use the wrong glass for a non-game day. She believed she deserved more alcohol since I made a mistake. She sent the drink back and ordered my server to tell me to give her more liquor. One thing you never tell a bartender? Make my drink stronger. So I remade her mojito with almost no alcohol, adding just 2 drops of rum down her sip straw. She certainly enjoyed her stronger drink, and even ordered 2 more. I hope she enjoyed paying almost $30 for 3 drinks with perhaps a 1/4 ounce of liquor in total. Don't mess with my servers or criticize my drinks. The next one is a malicious compliance story. At my old job, I worked for 14 years. We evolved with the times as technology advanced. Initially, we had to submit original receipts with expense reports. Later, we could scan them into a PDF and email them. Towards the end of my tenure, we used an app that categorized everything. It created a spreadsheet or CSV file that accounting could use to copy and paste data. The app also converted the receipt images into a PDF file and numbered them for convenience. Notably, the receipt could be adjusted to a 1/4 of a page, so that small receipts like those for gas or food wouldn't take up an entire page. Hotel and rental car receipts could be set to full page for better readability. This system worked well until Betty the accountant complained to our supervisor. She insisted we needed to show itemized receipts to ensure our department wasn't exceeding the meal expense guidelines. The company allowed, I believe, $55 per day for meals when traveling, $10 for breakfast, $20 for lunch, and $25 for dinner. If you had dinner, they permitted up to 2 alcoholic beverages. Some employees would purchase more and omit the itemized receipt to bypass this rule. Others would have a complimentary hotel breakfast, eat a cheap lunch, and then splurge on dinner and drinks. The accounting department despised this. I primarily worked in rural areas, frequenting gas station eateries, local diners, and buffets. Some provided handwritten receipts, while others only gave the credit card receipt with the total. After discussing this with Betty, she remained adamant that without an itemized receipt, I wouldn't be reimbursed. I tried to comply. Some restaurants scribbled something on a receipt pad, but others simply said, "Sorry, this is all we have." After a week of denied expenses, I devised a plan. If a restaurant didn't provide an itemized receipt, I'd photograph my food. Every plate at a buffet, desserts, pizza, Chinese dishes, waffles, everything. I'd pair each photo with the corresponding receipt, setting each image to full page. I deliberately dined at places that didn't offer itemized receipts that week. After submitting my expenses, I waited. My supervisor called me, chuckling, and said, "I appreciate your effort and understand your frustration, but please don't submit an expense report with over 20 pictures of your meals. I've spoken to accounting and they've agreed that if an itemized receipt isn't available, a standard receipt will suffice. No more food photos, all right?" he continued, laughing. "By the way, they'll reimburse you for the previous week's denied expenses." I made my point and got them to reconsider an unreasonable rule. The next one is an entitled people story. Somehow I returned again and with some crazy information about events that transpired this past year. I could never have imagined how things could have spiraled into what occurred. If you thought my brother-in-law throwing my chair through a bay window after his son wasn't allowed to sit on it was wild, just wait until you read about this. You might find it hard to believe. Firstly, my quality padded folding chair, which I had paid over $80 for, was stolen. I'm unsure who took it, as it didn't happen at a family event. Instead, it was during a casual hangout at a friend's house. Someone simply walked into his yard and took it. I learned my lesson and vowed never to buy an expensive folding chair again. Now I just keep an inexpensive folding chair I bought for $3 at a secondhand store in my trunk. Moving on, the family pranks I mentioned in my previous post seem to have ceased, but some resumed over time. However, they were just harmless antics that elicited laughter. The only person they refrained from pranking was me due to past events, but that didn't halt the sense of entitlement. The 7-year-old son of one of my cousins took my phone during a family birthday party at my parents' house and deliberately damaged it instead of returning it. His parents were already facing challenges. My cousin, the father, frequently disagreed with his wife about parenting. His now ex-wife often enabled their son's behavior. She's also financially irresponsible and has a very stubborn attitude, refusing to admit when she's wrong. She was one of the vocal critics of my habit of bringing my own chair and not sharing it. However, she never resorted to violence. She once told me that if I was going to bring my own chair, it should be a non-folding wooden one. I responded that I wasn't going to carry a dining room chair everywhere when a folding chair fits easily in my trunk. We argued further, but it led nowhere. None of the family events took place at her house, and she doesn't control my actions. She gave me hostile looks for months, but otherwise kept her distance. On the night her son stole my phone, he was already grounded from using electronics. He swiped my phone when I placed it on a table to enjoy some cake and then sneaked away. He locked himself in the master bedroom closet, attempting to download gaming apps. The closet door had a lock, and the key had been lost for years. The boy refused to come out or give back the phone. His mother kept telling everyone, especially me, to let him play with it, but I stood firm, insisting my phone wasn't his toy. Despite multiple requests to open the door, he declined. All the while, his mother contradicted our demands. My cousin eventually tried to force the flimsy door open. Just as he was making progress, we heard loud bangs from inside the closet. The boy was smashing my phone against a hard surface. When his father finally pulled him out, my phone's screen was almost shattered, though the case protected the rest. My cousin's wife tried to blame me, saying it was my fault her son broke the phone because I wouldn't let him play games on it. Everyone in the room disagreed with her, and she fell silent. The repair cost around $300, and I had to use a backup phone in the meantime. My cousin covered the repair expenses. The rest of the family was aware of my cousin's wife's aversion to folding chairs like mine. After the incident with her son, they decided to prank her due to her behavior. I want to clarify that I wasn't involved and didn't endorse the prank, but it was beyond my control. My cousins replaced every chair in her house with folding chairs, at the dining table, the counter, the living room, and even the porch. Her reaction upon returning home was more extreme than anyone anticipated. They had hoped to capture her throwing a fit for a laugh. Instead, she tried to grab a knife to attack her husband. When that failed, she used pepper spray on everyone present and then assaulted her husband with her long, fake nails. Luckily, another family member intervened. It's hard to believe all this chaos stemmed from folding chairs. I feel somewhat responsible since I started bringing my own chair to family gatherings due to limited seating. The police were called, and she was arrested. The men present needed medical attention due to the pepper spray, and my cousin's face was severely scratched, resembling wounds from a wild animal. He sought a restraining order against his wife. The entire incident, including her threats with the knife, was recorded. After a brief jail stint, she stayed with her equally narcissistic sister. My cousin filed for divorce, and after pleading guilty to assault, she spent more time in jail. She was barred from seeing her son for a while and tried to retaliate during the divorce proceedings. However, evidence of her instability worked against her. My cousin received primary custody, while she got supervised visitation rights. She seems to have moved on, now living with an older man, sporting a deep tan and bleached hair. It appears she prefers the sugar baby lifestyle. Since being separated from his mother, my cousin's son has shown significant improvement. He underwent counseling and now listens to his father more. He's often under supervision as my cousin works, but things are looking up. Still, I can't help but feel somewhat responsible because of the chair situation. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll